Adi the Haunted Mansion, a supernatural investigation. Chapter 1, The Shadow of Blackwood Mansion. The town clock struck midnight as Detective Sam Turner entered his office, the sound of rain against the window muffling the echoes of his footsteps. He lit a cigarette, the flame revealing a weary face etched with the marks of time. The failures and losses of the past weighed heavily on his shoulders, but the letter he had found that morning promised a new opportunity. The letter was from Evelyn Blackwood, the heiress of the infamous Blackwood Mansion, an imposing, ivy-covered property that had dominated the hill for generations. Rumours about the mansion were as old as the town itself. Murders, mysterious disappearances and inexplicable tragedies marked the history of the Blackwood family. Turner decided to take the case, not just for the generous sum offered, but for the promise of redemption. He needed something to pull him out of the shadows of his own demons. But he knew he couldn't face this challenge alone. Thus, he sought out his former partner, the medium Claire Dubois. Claire was an enigmatic woman with a natural talent for the supernatural and a skepticism that defied logic. She had her own reasons for joining Turner, a search for answers that had haunted her since childhood. Together, they formed an unlikely but effective duo. Upon arriving at Blackwood Mansion, they were greeted by Evelyn, a woman of melancholic beauty with eyes that reflected the weight of centuries of secrets. Despite its dilapidated state, the mansion emanated an aura of grandeur and mystery. The ivy that covered its walls seemed alive, intertwining in a suffocating embrace. Evelyn recounted the recent events: inexplicable lights at night, whispers in the empty hallways, shadows that moved as if they had a life of their own. The locals avoided the mansion, fearing the legends of apparitions and paranormal phenomena. Turner and Claire decided to spend the first night in the mansion, setting up paranormal detection equipment and surveillance cameras. The wind howled through the cracks in the walls, and darkness seemed to swallow every corner of the house. As they explored the corridors, the tension was palpable, as if the mansion itself were watching their movements. That night, they heard unexplainable noises, dragging footsteps upstairs, doors creaking for no reason, whispers that seemed to call out to someone. Claire sensed a presence, something ancient and powerful, but she couldn't pinpoint its origin. Turner, for his part, remained alert, his hand steady on the gun beneath his coat. As dawn approached, both knew this was only the beginning. The shadows of Blackwood Mansion hid secrets waiting to be revealed, and they were determined to uncover them, no matter the cost. Now to do Chapter 2, Voices in the Darkness. The first night at Blackwood Mansion had been merely a prelude to the events that would unfold. Detective Sam Turner and medium Claire Dubois awoke to the sound of rain drumming incessantly on the roof, a harbinger of the shadows that would continue to surround them. Descending to the main hall, they found Evelyn Blackwood already awake, her eyes bearing the marks of a sleepless night. The heiress seemed fragile, but determined to uncover the truth haunting her inheritance. As she prepared a cup of tea for each of them, she began to recount the initial signs that something was amiss in the mansion. "The sighting started 6 months ago," Evelyn said, her voice low and hesitant. "The workers I hired to restore the house began seeing inexplicable lights and hearing disturbing sounds at night. Soon they started quitting, claiming the mansion was haunted." Turner nodded, mentally noting each detail. "And the locals? Has anyone had similar experiences before?" Evelyn sighed. "For generations, the mansion has been the centre of dark stories. Many claim to have seen apparitions, ghostly figures in the gardens, shadows moving through the corridors. Some say the house's founder, my ancestor Edmund Blackwood, still roams these halls, seeking redemption." Claire, ever attuned to paranormal details, suggested they speak with some of these witnesses. The search for truth required more than just physical investigation. They needed to understand what the spirits were trying to communicate. In the small village near the mansion, Turner and Claire found several witnesses willing to share their experiences. One of them was Mary, an elderly woman who had lived there since childhood. Her eyes gleamed with a mixture of fear and fascination as she recounted her encounters. "I saw a bluish light coming from the attic window," Mary said. "It was like someone, or something, was trying to communicate. And sometimes I hear a sad melody played on the mansion's old piano, but when I get close, the sound vanishes." Another witness, a young man named Tom, spoke of a female figure that appeared near the mansion's lake, her silhouette always shrouded in mist. "She doesn't seem hostile," he said, "but there's something profoundly sad about her, like she's looking for someone." These accounts intrigued Turner and Claire, providing valuable clues about what they were facing. Back at the mansion, they decided to investigate the attic, the epicenter of many sightings. The stairs creaked beneath their feet as they ascended, each step sounding like a lament from the past. When they reached the attic, they were greeted by a chilling and oppressive air. Claire, sensing the presence of something powerful, closed her eyes and focused. Suddenly a whisper filled the air, indistinct words laden with despair. Turner illuminated the space with his flashlight, revealing a dusty room filled with old toys, covered furniture, and an antique grand piano. Claire approached the piano, finding a sheet of music open to a sad, unfamiliar melody. "This is it," she murmured. "This place holds the key to the mansion's secrets." Suddenly, a strong wind swept through the attic, extinguishing Turner's flashlight and plunging them into complete darkness. Claire gripped Turner's hand tightly as indistinct whispers turned into agonized screams. Something ancient and painful was trying to communicate, and they were determined to listen. Chapter 3, Secrets in the Shadows. The sun had barely risen when Turner and Claire awoke in Blackwood Mansion. The first night had been disturbing, but the investigations were just beginning. Evelyn Blackwood, with eyes marked by fatigue, met them in the main hall holding a stack of aged documents. "I found these in the attic," she said, handing over old diaries and yellowed letters. "They are records from the former residence. Maybe you'll find something that explains the apparitions." Turner and Claire pored over the documents, delving into the tumultuous history of the Blackwoods. Pages of diaries revealed dark details, occult rituals, secret pacts, and a forbidden love that ended in tragedy. One letter in particular caught Turner's attention. It was written by Abigail Blackwood, a young woman who had lived there over a century ago. She spoke of a mysterious lover and a promise to reunite beyond death. As they read, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. Turner and Claire exchanged glances, then stood up and followed the sound. The footsteps led them to a locked room on the second floor. Claire, sensing a strong presence behind the door, picked an old key from the belongings Evelyn had given them. Entering the room, they were met with a heavy, oppressive air. The walls were covered in old portraits, and in the centre of the room, a dusty canopy bed remained untouched. Turner opened one of the windows, allowing sunlight to reveal details hidden by shadows. It was then that Claire noticed a diary hidden among the pillows. She carefully opened it, revealing Abigail Blackwood's final words. "They won't let us leave," she wrote. "We are trapped here, bound by the sins of the past and the secrets we swore to protect." Suddenly, an intense chill filled the room, and the figure of a young woman appeared before them. It was Abigail, her eyes full of sorrow and despair. Claire reached out, trying to communicate. "Abigail, what happened to you?" Claire asked, her voice soft and comforting. Abigail's figure extended a hand, pointing to a specific portrait on the wall, a man with a severe, cruel expression. It was Edmund Blackwood, the family patriarch. Before they could ask more, Abigail vanished, leaving a sense of urgency in the air. Turner and Claire knew they needed to uncover more about Edmund Blackwood and the secrets he kept. They decided to explore the mansion's basement, a place used for secret rituals, according to the diaries. Evelyn, reluctant but determined to help, accompanied them. Ascending the stone steps, They were enveloped by darkness and the smell of dampness. The basement was vast, with walls covered in strange symbols and a fireplace that seemed never to have been used. In the centre of the room, a stone table was laden with old objects, candles, books, and an amulet that seemed to pulse with its own energy. Claire picked up the amulet, feeling a strange warmth in her hands. "This place has seen many terrible things," she said, her voice trembling. "We might be dealing with something far more powerful than we imagined." Turner, examining the books, found a heavy, leather-bound volume. Opening it, he discovered it was a grimoire, filled with spells and forbidden rituals. The pages spoke of invocations and pacts that could trap souls and condemn them to wander eternally. Suddenly, a strong wind swept through the basement, extinguishing the candles and leaving them in darkness. Whispering voices filled the air, followed by sinister laughter echoing through the walls. Turner gripped his gun firmly, while Claire, holding the amulet, tried to focus on the energy around them. "We need to find a way to break this cycle," Turner said, "and quickly." With the amulet and the grimoire in hand, they returned to the main hall, determined to uncover the secrets that kept the souls bound to Blackwood Mansion. The battle was just beginning, and the dangers they would face were greater than they ever imagined. Determined to listen. Chapter 4. Echoes of the past night fell once more over Blackwood Mansion, bringing with it a sense of unease. Turner, Claire, and Evelyn gathered in the main hall, surrounded by the documents, the grimoire, and the amulet they had found in the basement. The fireplace crackled softly, casting dancing shadows on the walls, while the wind outside howled like a lost soul. "We need to understand more about this amulet and the rituals mentioned in the grimoire," Turner said, holding the heavy leather-bound book tightly. "Maybe we'll find a way to free the trapped souls here." Claire, always sensitive to the energies around her, examined the amulet carefully. "This object carries intense energy. It's directly connected to the events that occurred in this house. If we can discover how it was used, perhaps we can reverse its effects." Determined to help, Evelyn suggested they search for more clues in Edmund Blackwood's private quarters. He was a very reserved man, but there are rumours he kept a secret study where he conducted his occult practices. They ascended the main staircase, which creaked under their feet, and headed down the second-floor corridor. The walls were covered with portraits of former residents, their penetrating gazes following the visitors. Edmund's study was a large room with a reinforced door. Turner used the key Evelyn had found to unlock it, revealing a space filled with books, alchemical instruments, and ancient scrolls. The air was heavy with the scent of burnt incense and long extinguished candles. Claire immediately sensed the presence of something powerful and focused, trying to catch any trace of residual energy. Turner began to sift through the books and scrolls, searching for clues about the rituals described in the grimoire. It was then they found Edmund Blackwood's personal diary, hidden in a locked drawer. Turner opened it carefully, its pages filled with notes on experiments, invocations, and detailed descriptions of complex rituals. Edmund believed he could achieve immortality through these rituals, Turner explained. He made pacts with unknown entities, using this amulet as a catalyst for his practices. Ascending the stone steps, they were enveloped by darkness and the smell of dampness. The basement was vast, with walls covered in strange symbols and a fireplace that seemed never to have been used. In the centre of the room, a stone table was laden with old objects, candles, books, and an amulet that seemed to pulse with its own energy. Claire picked up the amulet, feeling a strange warmth in her hands. "This place has seen many terrible things," she said, her voice trembling. "We might be dealing with something far more powerful than we imagined." Turner, examining the books, found a heavy, leather-bound volume. Opening it, he discovered it was a grimoire, filled with spells and forbidden rituals. The pages spoke of invocations and pacts that could trap souls and condemn them to wander eternally. Suddenly, a strong wind swept through the basement, extinguishing the candles and leaving them in darkness. Whispering voices filled the air, followed by sinister laughter echoing through the walls. Turner gripped his gun firmly, while Claire, holding the amulet, tried to focus on the energy around them. "We need to find a way to break this cycle," Turner said, "and quickly." With the amulet and the grimoire in hand, they returned to the main hall, determined to uncover the secrets that kept the souls bound to Blackwood Mansion. The battle was just beginning, and the dangers they would face were greater than they ever imagined. Determined to listen. Marguerite, Chapter 5. The Night of Revelation. Blackwood Mansion seemed to breathe with a life of its own as night fell. The wind outside howled like the laments of lost souls, and the shadows inside the house lengthened, creating sinister shapes on the walls. Turner, Claire, and Evelyn gathered in the main hall where they had prepared everything for the ritual of release. Candles were arranged in a circle, their flames flickering as if influenced by an unseen force. Turner held the grimoire with steady hands, reading and rereading the ritual instructions. Claire, holding the amulet, felt the constant pulsation of the energy within the object, a direct connection to the imprisoned souls. Evelyn, despite her evident fear, remained resolute, determined to help free the spirits that had tormented her family for generations. "We have to do this exactly as described," Turner said, his grave voice breaking the tense silence. "Any mistake could have terrible consequences." Claire nodded, positioning herself in the center of the circle of candles. Taking a deep breath, she began to recite the ritual words, her voice echoing through the hall. Turner and Evelyn, holding candles, followed her lead, repeating the ancient words that reverberated with power. As the ritual progressed, the air around them seemed to vibrate, and a cold current spread through the hall. The candle flames flickered violently, and shadows began to move across the walls as if coming to life. Claire sensed a growing presence, something ancient and powerful, awakening around her. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind extinguished all the candles, plunging the hall into darkness. Only the faint glow of the amulet illuminated the space, casting a sinister light on the faces of those present. Claire continued to recite the spell, her voice now a determined whisper against the roar of the wind. Then a figure appeared in the darkness, emerging from the shadows. It was Abigail, her ghostly presence clearer and more defined than ever. Her eyes were filled with sorrow and despair, but also with hope. She approached the circle of candles, her hand reaching out towards Claire. "Help me," Abigail whispered, her voice an ethereal echo. "Free us from this torment." With tears in her eyes, Claire grasped Abigail's spectral hand and continued the spell. Turner and Evelyn felt the energy growing, a palpable force pulling the trapped souls towards freedom. The shadows on the walls began to writhe and dissipate, as if an invisible barrier was breaking. Suddenly a tall, imposing figure emerged from the remaining shadows. It was Edmund Blackwood, his severe face and eyes glowing with ancient hatred. He advanced towards Claire, his oppressive presence threatening to break the circle. "You have no right," Edmund growled, his voice reverberating through the hall. "They belong to me." With renewed courage, Turner faced Edmund's spirit. "You've caused enough pain and suffering. It's time to set these souls free." Claire, supported by Turner and Evelyn's strength, continued to recite the spell. The amulet's light shone brighter, casting a beam that pierced Edmund, making him recoil with a scream of rage. The spiritual battle intensified, the forces of good and evil colliding in a final confrontation. Claire felt one last wave of energy pass through her body as the final words of the spell left her lips. The amulet glowed with a blinding light, and then silence. As the light dimmed, the hall was calm once more. Abigail and the other spectral figures had vanished, and the oppressive presence of Edmund Blackwood was no longer felt. The candles miraculously relit themselves, their flames now calm and steady. Claire fell to her knees, exhausted but relieved. Turner and Evelyn helped her to her feet, both equally shaken, but with a sense of triumph. The souls had been freed, and Blackwood Mansion was finally at peace. Chapter 6. Revelatory Silences. Blackwood Mansion was eerily silent the following morning. The oppressive sensation that once permeated the air had vanished, leaving behind an almost deafening silence. Turner, Claire and Evelyn sat in the library, the first light of day filtering through dusty windows. It was a moment of reflection, but also of apprehension. They knew that although the souls had been freed, the mansion's dark secrets still needed to be unearthed. "We need to investigate Edmund Blackwood's history more deeply," Turner said, breaking the silence. "There are still many unanswered questions." Evelyn, with a determined expression, agreed. "I know my ancestor was a complex man, but I can't allow his shadow to haunt our family any longer." Claire, sensing a residual energy in the air, suggested they start with the mansion's west wing, an area that had been closed off and forgotten for decades. "Something tells me the answers we seek are hidden there." The three climbed the main staircase, heading toward the west wing. As they pushed open the heavy doors, they were greeted by a dusty and dark corridor. Portraits of former residents watched them, their eyes seeming to follow every movement. The air was cold, and a faint draught seemed to whisper forgotten secrets. At the end of the corridor, they found a massive wooden door adorned with symbols Claire recognized as ancient runes. Turner forced the lock, and with a protesting creak, the door opened, revealing a room untouched by time. It was an office, richly decorated with antique furniture and shelves full of books. In the center of the room, a large oak desk was covered with papers, maps, and curious objects. Turner began sifting through the documents while Claire examined the dusty, worn books on the shelves. Evelyn found a journal, different from the others, with a dark leather cover and a lock. "This must be important," she murmured, handing it to Turner, who quickly managed to open the lock. The journal belonged to Edmund Blackwood. Its pages were filled with notes on alchemical experiments, invocation rituals, and philosophical reflections. But what caught their attention most was a series of letters hidden among the pages. They were correspondences between Edmund and a man named Victor Carlyle, who appeared to be his mentor in the occult arts. "Victor Carlyle was Edmund's mentor," Turner said, reading one of the letters. "They were obsessed with the idea of immortality and eternal power. These rituals were just the beginning." Claire found a detailed map of the mansion and its surroundings, with several markings indicating places of interest. "It looks like there are more places on the property we need to investigate. This symbol here, near the lake, is the same as the one we saw on the amulet." They decided to follow the map, leaving the mansion and heading toward the lake on the property grounds. The lake was surrounded by ancient trees, its dark waters reflecting the cloudy sky. At the point, indicated on the map, they found a small island in the center of the lake, accessible by a narrow stone path. Upon reaching the island, they discovered a small, ruined chapel covered in moss and vegetation. The door was ajar, and they entered, feeling an intense cold emanating from the very walls. In the center of the chapel, a stone altar was covered with ancient symbols and ritual objects. Claire, holding the amulet, felt a strong connection to the place. This is where it all began. Edmund and Victor performed their rituals here, trying to achieve the impossible. Turner examined the symbols on the altar, recognizing some of the drawings from Edmund's documents. "If we can understand exactly what they did here, maybe we can undo all the remaining effects." Suddenly a faint glow emanated from the altar, and a spectral figure appeared before them. It was Victor Carlyle, his face marked by an expression of despair and regret. His presence was different from the others. There was no anger, only sadness. "You have found my secret," the figure whispered. "Edmund and I went too far, and now we are all paying the price. Free us." Claire, with the amulet glowing intensely in her hands, responded firmly. "We will end this cycle of torment. but we need to know exactly what to do." Victor's figure began to fade, but before disappearing completely, he pointed to a specific symbol on the altar. "The circle must be broken. Find the key in the bones of the past." With these enigmatic words echoing in the chapel, the figure vanished, leaving Turner, Claire and Evelyn with a new puzzle to solve. They knew the battle was far from over, but now they had a new lead to follow. Chapter 7. Bones of the Past. The ruined chapel remained silent, except for the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. Victor Carlyle's words still echoed in the minds of Turner, Claire and Evelyn as they prepared for the next step of their journey. They knew they had to find the bones of the past to break the circle that held the souls captive. They returned to Blackwood Mansion, their quick steps reflecting the urgency of their new lead. In the library, Turner spread out the documents on the table, focusing on the maps and letters from Edmund and Victor. Claire, holding the amulet, felt its pulsating energy as a guide, indicating they were close to a revelation. "We need to look for any mention of bones or burial sites in these documents," Turner said, carefully examining the pages. Determined to help, Evelyn searched the family history books for any mention of tombs or crypts. Finally, Claire found a marginal note in one of Edmund's diaries. It was a rough sketch of a crypt with the inscription, "Here rest those who failed." Her fingers traced the outline of the drawing, and she looked up at Turner and Evelyn. "This must be what we're looking for, the Blackwood Crypt." Consulting the mansion's map, they located the crypt in a grove to the east of the property, a place that had not been visited in years. Armed with flashlights and renewed courage, they set off for the grove, their shadows lengthening under the pale moonlight. The path was winding and flanked by ancient trees, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The air was cold and damp, carrying the scent of earth and decaying leaves. Finally, they reached a clearing where the Blackwood Crypt stood, a weathered stone structure covered in moss and ivy. Turner pushed open the heavy stone door, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. The atmosphere was suffocating, and a heavy silence hung in the air. Claire and Evelyn followed Turner, descending the steps cautiously, their flashlights illuminating the path ahead. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a vast, cold chamber. Rows of niches in the walls held the remains of generations of the Blackwood family. In the center of the chamber, a stone sarcophagus stood out, decorated with ritual symbols and ancient inscriptions. "This must be the place," Claire said, feeling an intense energy emanating from the sarcophagus. "We need to open it and discover what's hidden inside." With great effort, Turner and Evelyn removed the heavy lid of the sarcophagus, revealing a skeleton draped in ceremonial robes. Among the bones they noticed amulets and ritual artifacts, but what caught their attention was an ancient medallion around the skeleton's neck. Claire, with trembling hands, took the medallion, feeling an immediate connection to the object. As she touched it, visions flooded her mind. Edmund and Victor performing rituals in the chapel, souls being imprisoned, and the ensuing horror. "This medallion is the key," Claire said, her voice firm. "We must use it at the chapel altar to break the circle." Suddenly, the crypt filled with an oppressive presence. The shadows on the walls began to move, forming threatening figures. Edmund Blackwood's figure appeared before them, his face twisted with rage. "You will not destroy what I have built," he roared, advancing on Claire. Turner drew his gun and fired at the figure, but the bullets passed through the spectre without effect. Claire, holding the medallion, began to recite the words of the liberation ritual. Edmund's presence tried to interrupt her, but the medallion's light shone intensely, momentarily repelling him. Realizing the importance of the moment, Evelyn joined Claire, reciting the spell with her. The energy in the chamber increased, and Edmund's figure screamed in agony, trying to resist the growing power. With a final effort, Claire finished the spell, and the medallion shone with a blinding light. Edmund's figure was consumed by the light, and the shadows dissipated. The air in the chamber grew lighter, and a peaceful silence replaced the oppressive tension. They knew they had made significant progress, but the battle was not completely won. With the medallion in hand, they returned to the mansion, ready for the final stage of their mission, to use the medallion in the chapel to free all the souls once and for all. Chapter 8. The Altar of Redemption. The Blackwood crypt was silent as Turner, Claire and Evelyn returned to the mansion, the ancient medallion safe in Claire's hands. The weight of responsibility weighed heavily on them, but they knew they were one step away from freeing all the souls trapped by Edmund Blackwood's rituals. The final stage awaited them in the ruined chapel, where it all began. The walk back to the chapel was marked by a tense silence. The ancient trees seemed to watch them, their gnarled branches forming arches over the narrow path. The full moon cast a pale glow, illuminating the trail with an eerie light. When they reached the island in the center of the lake, the chapel stood before them, solemn and imposing. Inside the chapel, the stone altar awaited, covered with ancient symbols and an aura that seemed to pulse with residual energy. Claire, holding the medallion, approached the altar, feeling a powerful connection to the place. Turner and Evelyn positioned themselves beside her, ready to support her in whatever was necessary. "We need to place the medallion at the center of the altar and recite the final liberation spell," Claire explained, her voice firm but tinged with emotion. "This should break the circle and free all the imprisoned souls." Turner lit the candles around the altar, their flames flickering gently in the night breeze. Evelyn held the grimoire, ready to assist Claire in reciting the words. The air seemed to vibrate with silent anticipation, as if the chapel walls themselves were waiting for the ritual's conclusion. Claire placed the medallion at the center of the altar, and a soft light began to emanate from the object, growing in intensity. Taking a deep breath, she began to recite the spell's words, her hands raised in a gesture of invocation. Turner and Evelyn repeated the words, their voices joining Claire's in a powerful chorus. As the spell progressed, the medallion's light intensified, illuminating the entire chapel. The shadows on the walls began to move, forming indistinct figures of imprisoned souls. They seemed drawn to the light, like moths to a flame. Suddenly, Edmund Blackwood's figure appeared again, his expression furious and desperate. He tried to advance on Claire, but the medallion's light repelled him, forcing him to retreat. "You cannot destroy me," Edmund shouted, his voice echoing through the chapel. "I am eternal." Claire, undeterred, continued to recite the spell with renewed determination. Turner and Evelyn, sensing the moment's intensity, raised their voices, creating a wave of energy that spread throughout the chapel. Edmund's figure began to fade, his form becoming increasingly translucent. With a final scream of despair, he disappeared into the light, leaving only a sense of peace in his place. The imprisoned souls, now freed, began to dissipate, their ethereal figures ascending toward the medallion's light. Abigail appeared before Claire, a smile of gratitude on her spectral face. "Thank you," Abigail whispered, her voice soft as the breeze. "We are finally free." With these words, Abigail's figure vanished, joining the other souls rising toward the light. The chapel was filled with a sense of serenity, and the medallion's light began to fade until it disappeared completely. Claire, exhausted but triumphant, fell to her knees before the altar. Turner and Evelyn helped her up, sharing a moment of relief and accomplishment. They knew they had fulfilled their mission and that Blackwood Mansion was finally at peace. The walk back to the mansion was calm, the weight of the freed souls now absent. As they arrived, the sun began to rise on the horizon, bathing the property in a golden, renewing light. Evelyn, looking at the mansion, felt a new hope growing in her heart. "I think I can finally start rebuilding this house and our history," she said, smiling at Turner and Claire. "Thanks to you." Turner and Claire exchanged a look of camaraderie. They knew that this experience had changed them forever. As they said goodbye to Evelyn and left Blackwood Mansion, They felt ready to face any challenge the future might bring. Arden, Chapter 9, Under the Light of Dawn. The sun rose slowly over Blackwood Mansion, casting long shadows that retreated with the arrival of the morning light. The property, once shrouded in mystery and darkness, now seemed to breathe with new life. Turner and Claire walked along the path leading to the mansion's exit, their steps slow and contemplative after the intense experience of the previous night. As they reached the main gate, Evelyn approached, her eyes shining with gratitude and relief. "I don't know how to thank you both. The peace you've brought to my family is an invaluable gift." Turner smiled softly, his hands in his coat pockets as he looked at the mansion, which now seemed less threatening. "It's been quite a journey, but I'm glad we succeeded. Now you can start a new chapter for Blackwood Mansion." Claire, still feeling the residual effects of the spiritual energy, turned to Evelyn. "Remember to honor the spirits we helped free. This house has a rich history, and you can turn it into something beautiful." Evelyn nodded, understanding the depth of Claire's words. "I promise I will. My family's history will be remembered in a different light now." As they prepared to leave, a black car pulled up near the gate. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out and approached them, carrying a briefcase and wearing a serious but respectful expression. "Mr. Turner, Ms. Dubois," he said, greeting them with a nod. "I'm the Blackwood family's attorney. I've been informed about the recent events and would like to express my gratitude on behalf of the family. I also have something for you." The attorney opened the briefcase and took out 2 sealed envelopes. "These are tokens of appreciation from Evelyn and the Blackwood family. Your dedication and bravery will not go unnoticed." Turner and Claire accepted the envelopes with a nod, thanking him silently. The attorney bid them farewell and returned to his car, leaving them alone once again. Opening the envelopes, they found letters of gratitude and generous checks. Claire looked at Turner, her eyes reflecting surprise and gratitude. "This will help us a lot with future investigations." Turner agreed, placing the envelope in his coat pocket. "Definitely, now we can continue our work and help more people." As they walked towards their car, Claire felt a familiar presence. She stopped and looked back, seeing an ethereal figure of Abigail, waving gently, a serene smile on her face. Turner also noticed the apparition and waved back, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I think she's saying goodbye," Claire said, her words soft as a sigh. "And thanking us once again," Turner replied. "We'll honor this farewell by continuing our work." They got into the car, and as they drove away from Blackwood Mansion, the feeling of a new journey enveloped them. They knew other mysteries awaited them, but they were ready to face them together. The road ahead was uncertain, but with each challenge came new opportunities for redemption and discovery. The sun was fully on the horizon now, bathing everything in a golden light. Blackwood Mansion, with its history of shadows and secrets, could finally rest. Turner and Claire, with light hearts, moved forward, ready for the next case and the stories it would bring. Matan, Chapter 10. The journey continues. Turner and Claire's car moved steadily along the winding road, leaving Blackwood Mansion further behind in the rearview mirror. The sun shone high, and the sense of completion mingled with anticipation for what lay ahead. Turner drove in silence, his thoughts drifting over recent memories, while Claire watched the landscape pass by, lost in reflection. Suddenly, the sound of a phone broke the tranquility. Claire pulled her cell phone from her pocket and answered. "Hello?" On the other end, a firm and concerned voice replied, "Ms. Dubois, this is Inspector Martin. We've received a strange report from an old museum downtown. Guards are seeing inexplicable things, and visitors have reported disturbing sensations. We need your help." Claire exchanged a glance with Turner, who already knew what this meant. "We'll be there soon, Inspector," she said, before hanging up. Turner smiled, a mix of weariness and excitement in his eyes. "Looks like we won't be getting any rest soon. ready for another adventure. Claire returned the smile, feeling adrenaline begin to rise again. Always ready. Let's solve another mystery. They arrived at the museum in the early afternoon, an imposing stone building guarded by ancient statues at the entrance. Inspector Martin awaited them at the door, his face reflecting the urgency of the situation. "Thank you for coming so quickly. We have reports of shadows moving on their own, objects shifting places, and whispering voices no one can identify." Turner and Claire followed the inspector through the museum, observing the exhibits of historical artifacts and ancient paintings. The feeling of something unusual was present in every corridor, as if the very objects had dark stories to tell. They stopped in front of a recent exhibit, an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus, recently discovered in an excavation. "It all started after this sarcophagus was brought here," the inspector explained. "Some believe it's cursed." Claire approached the sarcophagus, feeling a wave of negative energy emanating from it. "There's a presence here, something ancient and powerful." Turner examined the hieroglyphs engraved on the stone, trying to decipher their meaning. "These inscriptions speak of a curse and a restless soul. Vis dat, a restless soul that hasn't found peace." Suddenly, the museum lights flickered, and a shadow darted across the room, passing quickly by them. Claire closed her eyes, trying to focus on the presence. "We need to find out who this soul is and what it needs to rest." Night fell, and the museum was closed to the public, allowing Turner and Claire to investigate without interruptions. Armed with paranormal equipment and accompanied by the inspector, they began exploring the darkened corridors. Shadows moved along the walls, and whispers filled the air, but Claire remained focused, following the energy she sensed. They stopped in front of a large tapestry depicting an ancient Egyptian ceremony. Claire placed her hand on the tapestry and had a vision, an Egyptian priest being betrayed and sealed inside the sarcophagus, his soul cursed to wander eternally. "He was betrayed," Claire murmured, sharing the vision with Turner and the inspector. "We need to perform a peace ritual to free his soul." Turner, with the inspector's help, found an ancient papyrus with instructions for passage rituals. They followed the described steps, lighting candles and reciting sacred words in front of the sarcophagus. The atmosphere in the museum changed, and the presence grew stronger. At the height of the ritual, the spectral figure of the priest appeared, his eyes filled with pain and despair. Claire extended her hand, offering peace. "We understand your pain. Let us help you find rest." The priest looked at her with gratitude, and as the ritual words echoed through the museum, his figure began to fade, finally finding peace. The shadows disappeared, and the museum fell silent, the negative energy dissipating. The inspector, relieved, thanked them profusely. "You've saved this place. Thank you." Turner and Claire left the museum under the starlight, ready to face whatever other mysteries might arise. They knew their work would never end, but they were determined to continue, bringing peace and justice wherever they were needed. As they drove away, the feeling of a new journey embraced them. They knew other challenges awaited, but they were prepared to tackle them together. The road ahead was uncertain, but with every challenge came new opportunities for redemption and discovery. The sun had fully risen now, bathing everything in a golden light. Blackwood Mansion, with its history of shadows and secrets, could finally rest. Turner and Claire, with light hearts, moved forward, ready for the next case and the stories it would bring.